So I did this in previous years at this Kislev. I never did this before this time of year. Every class I'm going to say another piece. So I'm going to start with you, Sukkos. So each seminary-based group is going to get a different part of Sukkos and Simchas Torah, and I'll be happy to send you the classes. So all told, I will have done it all, I'm hoping, and I'll share it with you. That's what I'm planning to do, okay? So I'm going to start after Yom Kippur, okay? Yom Kippur, this is one of the experiences that anybody who witnessed it cannot forget. You would see the great transition. By Napoleon's march, the Rebbe looked like a malach, like an angel. The way I described Tkiyas to you, right? The Rebbe looked like he looked by Tkiyas. His face was, the countenance was pale with a little red. That's how I remember it. I don't remember the Rebbe being tomato red. I've seen the Rebbe be very red, but not by Tkiyas, not by Napoleon's march. And he looked like he was a million miles away. The feeling, Napoleon, he would clap and he would encourage the singing, but his body was doing one thing, his face was a million miles away. Then after Napoleon's march was Maidav, the whole thing took 10 minutes. After Maidav, the Rebbe turned around, literally 10 minutes later. And the Rebbe's face was radiant. He shone like the sun, he was so beautiful. It's impossible to imagine how a person's countenance can change so much in such a short time. Yom Kippur was Yom Kippur. As soon as Yom Kippur was over, you saw on the Rebbe's face, Sukkos. This is not a fair description, but I'm going to say it anyway. The closest thing to how the Rebbe looked Simchas Torah are the pictures of Matzah Yom Kippur. If you want to see how the Rebbe looked Simchas Torah, look at the pictures of Matzah Yom Kippur. On Simchas Torah, the whole 24 hours, they looked that way. It wasn't so much the smile. It was the radiance. The Rebbe's face shone. On Simcha, if Yom Kippur you felt like the Rebbe is a million miles away, Simchas Torah there could be 5,000 people in shul, and you felt like the Rebbe was standing next to you. There was such a sense that you felt so close. He was radiant. He was beautiful. There's no other word to describe. Beautiful. I once told the girls, and I'm telling you, I guess, they found a movie of the Rebbe talking to Benjamin Gordetsky, and they played it. They showed it. The ones that Rebbe had a public yechidus. I told this to you last year.
I still have the video.
It's unbelievable. Send it to the girls. Send it around. The Rebbe had people that he was very close with, that he worked with. The closest person to the Rebbe was Rabbi Chadikov. Arguably, the second closest person to the Rebbe was a person whose name you never really hear. His name was Rabbi Reish Beis Gimel, Rebbe Yaman Gordetsky. He was the Rebbe's shliach to Europe, to North Africa, and even to Israel. He was an incredibly accomplished askan. He was incredibly capable. He raised so much money for Lubavitch and so much money for the Rebbe, it's more than anybody else. And he did what he was told. He was a soldier. But his relationship with the Rebbe was unbelievably personal. He went into the Rebbe for Yechidus every time he traveled for hours before he left and when he came back. Till 1992, it never stopped. And they would chat like two friends. The Rebbe talked to him. One time they had this chat in public. And it wasn't a mistake. The Rebbe wanted this to be recorded. The Rebbe had what's called the Yechidus Klolos downstairs. The room empties out. There's sometimes a big room. There's nobody in the room. No one. When the last person leaves, the Rabbag walks up to the Rebbe. The Rebbe remains sitting. Rabbi Yossi Paltiel is standing, and they sit like this, talking for half an hour. The Rebbe leans back. He plays with his mustache. He's making with his hand like you never see. It's a conversation, very animated. And the Rebbe just looks gorgeous. There's no other word. Beautiful. Now on YouTube, there's 2 or 3 minutes. Get it, and she can send it to you. That countenance, I don't know why, that reminds me of Simchas Torah. Poshet looks, the Rebbe is 86 years old. Doesn't look like he's 50. His face looks just beautiful, physically gorgeous, radiant. That's how the Rebbe looked Matzah Simchas Torah. That's how the Rebbe looked by Matzah Yom Kippur. That's the whole Simchas Torah. So the minute Yom Kippur was over, the mood changed. The Rebbe radiated Simcha not with his words or even with his body, but with his face. When it was Sukkos, you knew it was Sukkos. They were looking at his face. The Rebbe just was in a good mood. And it started the day Simchas Torah was over. That whole thing started. Now, the last couple of years, The Rebbe had a minig that after Yom Kippur at night, while still in shul, the Rebbe would say that it says in Shulchan Aruch that you're supposed to start building the sukkah Matzah Yom Kippur. If you could, you build it all Matzah Yom Kippur. The Rebbe actually said, and then the Rebbe said, of course, if you don't build it, you talk about it. I mean, most people Matzah Yom Kippur have one thing in mind. Actually, two things: food and sleep. But the Rebbe spoke about the idea that Matzah Yom Kippur, at least, it says in Shulchan Aruch, you're supposed to talk about the sukkah. So the Rebbe's personal sukkah was put up the night of Matzah Yom Kippur. In other words, before Yom Kippur, it wasn't there. The big sukkah they're going to start building right after Rosh Hashanah. The Rebbe's small sukkah was built Matzah Yom Kippur. After Yom Kippur, the Bachrim came. By the morning, the whole sukkah was standing. The Rebbe spoke about this. The 4 days between Yom Kippur and Sukkah, the Rebbe was busy with different things. Amongst the things the Rebbe was busy with was the Daled Minim. First of all, the Rebbe bought Daled Minim for himself. And the Rebbe had people who came to him. Certain people, the original person who sold the Daled Minim to the Rebbe was Rabbi Yisrael Jacobson, Olav Shalom. He was a very, very famous, very important Lubavitcher Chassid here in America. And when he passed away in 1975, that zchus went to his son-in-law, who was a shliach of the Rebbe for 70 years. 70 years. He lived till 100, him and his wife both. Harav Mordechai Alltime, Rebbetzin Alltime's husband. Okay, that's how we knew her in Lubavitch. Rebbetzin Alltime's husband. She was Rabbi Jacobson's daughter. And he took over the business. So he would bring the Rebbe Daled Minim. But then there were others. Leibel Bistrisky brought the Rebbe Daled Minim, and there was other people brought the Rebbe Daled Minim. And they would pick for himself. Of course, these people, before they came to the Rebbe, took the very, very best stuff that they had. They themselves would look through it, the best esrog, the best lulav. And then from those, the Rebbe would choose. And the Rebbe paid them with a $100 bill. There are people who have $100 bills from the Rebbe. Every year, the Rebbe gave you a $100 bill for the Daled Minim. And Rabbi Oltein had many $100 bills because they did it for so many years. A $100 bill from the Rebbe. Imagine how valuable is that?
Why is that more valuable than a $1 bill from the Rebbe?
Good question. The answer is because Sotheby's will sell it for more money. Why that you last Sotheby's? And they used to bring the Rebbe lulav and esrog and das as they brought. The Rebbe himself needed 3 or 4. I think when his mother was alive, he took 4. When his mother passed away, he took 3. 1 was for himself, and 2 went home. 1 was for the Rebbetzin, I guess the second one was also for him. When the Rebbetzin passed away, the Rebbe told the Davidaskin to continue making the Daled Minim, which they kept in the house. The Rebbe was mostly in 770 and Yom, but the Rebbe continued the minig of making the Daled Minim for the Rebbetzin, even though the Rebbetzin passed away. When his mother passed away, he stopped making for his mother, but the Rebbe made 3. The 1 that he used himself, the Rebbe used to put together himself. The 2 for the Rebbetzin and the 3 for the Rebbe's mother, Rebbe David Raskin, the Rebbe told him how to do it. He would tie the Daled Minim. He would prepare the lulav for the Rebbe. The Rebbe used to purchase Daled Minim, and he insisted on paying for it. There's a whole story how the Friedrich Rebbe Dafke didn't want to pay for it, and the Rebbe was nervous because the Rebbe is very frum. He was worried about the lachem. They're supposed to be your own. The Friedrich Rebbe Dafke paid after Yom Tov. The Rebbe insisted on paying before Yom Tov. This was one parish. And there's another part to that parish. The other part of that parish is that in Kfar Chabad they had pardesim of esregim. Chabad is the Rebbe's city. And some of the Lubavitchers made a living making esregim, and they sold yanaves. They transplanted esregim. We don't use Israeli esregim. We use esregim from Italy, which are much more expensive, and they have a different shape. They look different. And they took saplings of Yanav esregim, they planted them in Kfar Chabad. Later, they got an esrog from the Rebbe himself. The Rebbe gave him his own esrog, and from those seeds they made. Now all the pardesim in Eretz Yisrael, and I think now also in Genoa, in Italy, they're replanting esregim trees from the esrog from the Rebbes. And the people of Kfar Chabad used to bring the Rebbe Daled Minim also. And they would go into the Rebbe, I think out of Yom Tov, and they prepared it with a beautiful box and so on and so forth, and the Rebbe would say, thank you. I don't think the Rebbe paid them for their Daled Minim. Another thing that happened to the Rebbe before Yom Tov was the Rebbe gave out Daled Minim. He took and he gave. And there was a list. There's different levels of close. The closest got from the Rebbe Daled Minim Kapshut. Rabbi Chadokov got from the Rebbe Daled Minim. Rabbi Nissen Medel got from the Rebbe Daled Minim. Rabbi Reichik, Olav Shalom, for those of any Reichiks in the room, got from the Rebbe Daled Minim. There was a handful of people that the Rebbe gave. Rabbi Yamin Gardeski got Daled Minim. There's other secretaries that would give them a lyhadus or one piece. But there were certain people who got from the Rebbe Daled Minim. In addition, the Rebbe gave Daled Minim to every country. So, for example, Morocco got Daled Minim for the country of Morocco. Eretz Yisrael, Kfar Chabad get 2 sets of Daled Minim for the Vada Gashmi, Vada Ruchni of Kfar Chabad. And the same is true of Yerushalayim, and the same is true of Nachas HaChabad. And all different countries, one person from each country had the schus to go into the Rebbe and take Daled Minim, like England, like France. I don't know all the particulars. The bottom line is you could see the videos of the Rebbe holding the paper. The Rebbe's holding the list, and he's looking at the list and looking at the people. What people tried to do is, if you had Daled Minim, you took 4 people. One took the Esrik, one to get the maximum of people to come into the Rebbe. One took the Lulav, one took the Aravis, and one took the Hadassim. And the Rebbe would stand, first it was in his room, in his own cheder, then in the later years it was in the room outside, what's called the Gan Eden Tachten, and for the later years there's videos, and people would take one Lulav, one Esrik, the Holy of Holies, they got all 4, they were getting the whole set, and everybody else they would take, and when everybody was finished collecting, they would all line up, and the Rebbe would stand there with his list, and there was a shortage of Hadassim, and go back into his room and bring more and put them down, people should have. At the end, he would give the photographer one, he would give the maskirim, you can see in the videos. And then each one would walk by the Rebbe, and the Rebbe would say to each one, in Yiddish, Mamshach zayin ala hamshachas al kol hashana kula, to bring down all of the good energies of associated with the Lulav for the whole year. Because Lulav is hamshachah, right? In the whole world, the Lulav is scaring away the bad winds, right? That's why everybody else is shaking the Lulav to the boogie monster, yeah? We bring the Lulav to our heart, api Kabbalah. Because the idea of the Lulav is to, api halacha, it is, by the way, in halacha it says that it's to be mevatel, tlolim royim, and ruches rois, to get rid of bad things. But in Kabbalah it's written that the whole idea of the Lulav is to bring the makif of the sukkah into a pnimius, which is why we're careful to shake the Lulav in the sukkah, and you bring it to your heart. So the Rebbe used to say, now here's something which is absolutely mind-blowingly spooky. Each one walked by, holding either the 4 minim or the 1 min, depending, they would do groups. And the Rebbe said to each person, so there's a video, I saw it with my own eyes. One of the people who got from the Rebbe Daled Minim, one of the most important Lubavitch Chassidim, really one of the most important Lubavitch Chassidim of our generation, was a Jew by the name of Reb Zusha Wilamowski, the partisan. There's a book on him. Extraordinary Jew. A chassid like you never saw. He got from the Rebbe Daled Minim. I don't know if it was personal or it was Kfar Chabad. He got from the Rebbe all 4. And the Rebbe missed him. I watched the film 10 times, never missed him. But it looks like it was an oversight, like it was a mistake. People are moving. The Rebbe says to this one, to this one, to this one, to this one, and he didn't see him. And it's done so inconspicuously, it's done so naturally that you think it's a mistake. The first day Sukkot that year was Shabbos. He passed away Motzei Shabbos. He never shook his lulav. This is something that you don't have to believe. You could see with your eyes. Ruach HaKodesh Goloi. Everybody walks by, and the Rebbe just misses him. But it's done in such a way that it almost seems like the Rebbe is, old and never bottle. He doesn't like fully there, he missed it. The first day Sukkot was Shabbos, he died, he never shook his lulav. And this, you don't need to believe me, you could see it with your eyes. It's spooky and it's eerie, but it's amazing. I mean, the Rebbe knew everything, but it was packaged as he just like was a regular person. That was the amazing thing. All of this holiness was presented in such a normal way that you could literally miss it. You could literally not see it. Literally not see it. Anyway, so Rebbe gave out the Daled Minim. This was out of Yom Tov. Sukkot and Lubavitch can be divided into 3 eras, 3 epochs, as they say in history. 3 periods. Until 1970, until 1980, and after 1980. Okay? Exciting, boring, very exciting. I'm sorry to break it to you, but that's how it was. When the Rebbe became a Rebbe, the Rebbe verbringed in the Sukkah a lot. Verbringed in the Sukkah. The second day Yom Tov the Rebbe verbringed, I think the Rebbe used to wash and eat a Suda and give Kesher Baruch the second day Sukkot. Shabbos Chalameid Sukkot was a verbring. In addition, until the Rebbe lost his mother, that means for 14 years, the Rebbe made a verbringen at night during Chalameid on a mic, of which there's recordings. It was a verbringen for Talmidei Yeshiva. So there was a minimum of 3 verbringens every Sukkot, and sometimes a 4th in the Sukkah. In the Sukkah.
What were the years of this period?
1950 to 1970, 71. Right? The end of the story was, any person who remembers that time, you say, you were in the sukkah, and the first reaction, the pushing was terrible. You have to understand, the Rebbe sat in the most uncomfortable position. Because the Rabbeim sit in Dorim. Where's Mizrach? Where's Mizrach? I'm asking a question. Mizrach is that way? Which way is Mizrach?
No, Mizrach is this.
This way is Mizrach. So where's Dorim? That's Dorim. So if you think about 770, where does the Rebbe sit in 770? On the far side of the room. That's Dorim, right? Where does he fabring? In the far side of the room. But the room is longer than it is wide. Now where's the sukkah? In the courtyard. Where's Dorim? At the back. The Rebbe didn't sit in the middle. So the fabrengen was long and narrow, and the Rebbe didn't sit in the middle, which would be ma'ariv. He sat in Dorim. So the Rebbe was sitting in a very uncomfortable position, and the pushing was terrible. And now the benches in 770 are made of steel. Then they were made of wood, and wood is not that, and nails. The benches would break like it was fun. If you just watch benches collapse as a child, and it would fall with the bench, and then you couldn't back up. It was broken. You had to fix it, and it was dangerous.
Is that when Marlo?
That's right. The end of that story was Rabbi Marlowe's leg was pulverized. A table fell, made into powder. A bench, a table full of people, and he didn't say a word till the Rebbe finished the sikha. The man was an excuse. Rabbi Marlowe was such a big chassid. He didn't want to disrupt the Rebbe. Nobody knew till the sikha was over. That man had one operation. That Rabbi Marlowe could walk. Rabbi Marlowe had 2 feet. Was a nest shalei apitava. There's no explanation. Rabbi Marlowe had 2 feet. It was such a nest. He had one operation and a second operation and a third operation. His wife came to the Rebbe and said enough operations. So the Rebbe said, okay, let him learn through Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. He knew Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch by heart, verbatim, the whole thing. Let him learn through Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch one more time, and they canceled the operation. Not because of Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, because the operation was unnecessary. So the Rebbe stopped bringing in the sukkah. Stopped, cold turkey, no more. I think there was 2 occasions, but he didn't bring him. So when I was growing up, Sukkot was like Pesach. There was nothing happening. We went to great adventures. Chalamoid Sukkot was boring. It was not like everybody, like the whole from world. You went to sleep at night. You woke up in the morning. Okay, the only feature there was a rally mostly for the kids from public school, and the Rebbe's lulav. But that was it. So during my childhood, Sukkot was not exciting. It was like Pesach. Every day went on another trip. That's what we did. I'm embarrassed to say, but that's the truth of the matter. I mean, we went on Mitzrayim. Of course we went on Mitzrayim. What was I saying? What was I thinking? Anyway, but then came a Malef, 81, 80.
Can you say the years for the seven years?
So it starts Lamed Beis. I think the story of Ramallah happened in Lamed Aleph, or Lamed, either 70 or 71. So that was from Lamed Beis, there was no more Fabrengens, through Tavshin Mem, 1979. Tavshin Mem Aleph, which was the Shnas Hakel, and by the way, this coming year, Tavshin Pei Gimel is also Hakel. It's every 7 years, so it's 42 years later. The first night of Sukkot, and by the way, Tavshin Mem Aleph, so many guests came. It probably 770 was packed. There was no place to put people. The streets were full of people. The home, everybody had so many guests. Tavshin Mem Aleph, the first night of Sukkot, the Rebbe turns around and starts to speak. And he speaks about Simchas Beis Sheva. You have to dance. Simchas Beis Sheva, you're supposed to dance. And the first year or two, the Rebbe spoke the simple stuff. He spoke to Halacha and he spoke to Chassidus, that the Simchas Beis Sheva was not done on Shabbos, it was not done on Yom Tif, because you're afraid you're going to do Halacha, you're not allowed to make fires and other things that they did, the Tikkun Gadol. But we have no Beis HaMikdash. So we don't necessarily have to use fires. We don't necessarily have to have a chalil, that means the musical instruments. We could do it by singing with our mouth. So as the Rebbe would often say, Kalkala Seinu, Zui Takana Seinu, our disadvantage, the fact that there's no Beis HaMikdash, becomes an advantage that we can do it more. Simchas Beis HaSheva starts tonight.
He said that?
He spoke 15 minutes, yeah. So after the Sikha, we all chazed the Sikha, and people went to dance. This is one of those stories where it's hard to know how much the Rebbe gets the credit for it, and how much the Chassidim get the credit for it. The reaction to the Sikha was unbelievable. And then the following night he spoke again, also for 20 minutes. But in a very, very short time, it turned from 20 minutes into an hour. You know, the Rebbe, it became like a whole Fabrengen. And the Rebbe would speak and speak and speak. So at first we danced in front of 770. Then we danced a woman reminded me, I didn't remember this myself, a woman reminded me that the first year we were dancing from President and Brooklyn till President and Albany. That's 2 city blocks. Then down Albany till Montgomery, then up Montgomery from Albany to Brooklyn and back again. That's 4 city blocks and 6 small blocks. And the circle was completely closed. There were so many people that there was no spaces. You know what that means? Hundreds and hundreds of people. So if you want to know why the cops gave us Montgomery and Kingston, they'd rather give us Kingston than give us Brooklyn, Kingston, and Albany, you understand? For a couple of nights, that's how we danced. And then it was negotiated. They gave us, they basically closed Crown Street and Montgomery Street, and then Kingston Avenue was closed. But at least on Brooklyn, and on Brooklyn actually has a bus, and on Albany, the Kingston bus had to be redirected. The traffic ran. And this is a tradition which exists to this day, Simchas Beis Hasheva. And all of a sudden, boring Sukkot became no sleep. It was unbelievable. Simchas Beis Hasheva took off like a rocket. It was so successful. And we danced a whole night. From whatever it is, 9:30 till 6 o'clock in the morning. And we do it Ad Hayom Hazeh. 6 nights. Hoshana Rabbah, somehow after Tillim, we don't go back onto the street, but till 6, every single night. We dance a whole night. And if you've ever been to Simchas Beis Hasheva, the beginning it's formal and it's for children, and then a little later it's for show-offs and for drunks. But late in the night, Simchas Beis Hasheva becomes a literally holy experience. I mean, the girls don't get to dance, and it's unfortunate, but you can watch it. The last few hours are hundreds of men just dancing. And I can tell you this from experience, when you join a bunch of people and dance, sooner or later, you forget about yourself. You just forget about yourself. And to me, the closest experience to holiness that I know is that dancing. The Rebbe wasn't present physically, but you get lost and you just dance and you just dance. And it really is unbelievably uplifting and happy. It's an incredible experience. It's a brainchild of the Rebbe, one of the thousands of ideas, the hundreds of ideas the Rebbe thought of. And Simchas Beis Hasheva is a smashing success. Unbelievable. Of course, everything is not perfect. It's a fantastic success. And of course, after Lubavitch, so in the beginning, everybody came here. Everybody. Chassidim, Misnagdim. And then slowly but surely, every community makes their own Simchas Beis Hasheva. But they do it for one night, for a couple of hours. We do it every night, all night, till 6 in the morning. And then the policemen push you off the street. I don't want the policemen to push me. I just have a rachmanas on their neshamas. They should push a yid, so I get off the street before they push me. But Simchas Beis Hasheva is one of those things. It's a gift from the Rebbe, and all of a sudden, Sukkot, which for 20 years had been so dynamic, and then for 10 years was so really sleepy, became no sleepy. And the Rebbe used to talk about how in the Gemara it says that they slept, but they didn't enjoy their sleep. They didn't taste sleep because they would lay their heads on the shoulder of the person next to them and doze off for a few minutes because it was a whole night. And then in the good years when I was a Chassidish Shabbat, you went the whole night till Beis Hasheva. Then at 6 o'clock in the morning you ran to the Karastira mikveh. Then you went to 7:70 and you waited. Then the Rebbe came with the lulav, which I'll talk about soon. Shook the Rebbe's lulav and he went downstairs and davened with the Rebbe. After davening, you went on Mivtzoyim. I remember going on Mivtzoyim and seeing people in quadruple. Every person that shook lulav was 4 people. We were so tired. You did it a day after a day, and then your body would fall apart. It was incredible. But this was what happened. This is what happened as a consequence of Simchas Beis Hasheva. It changed Crown Heights forever. I mean, even now, it's not as many people. For many reasons, and probably mostly because every community does their own. But Simchas Beis Hasheva is amazing. And it's really holy. It's religion. It's beautiful, it's fun, it's uplifting, and it's mamish avodas Hashem. And it's a gift of the Rebbes. And all of a sudden, Sukkot became unbelievably dynamic. Okay. Everybody did. Everybody did. Sure, you taught the Sukkah, you ate Pairis, you said L'chaim, you told a story. That's what they did. Nobody danced. But even in Lubavitch, they had Simchas Beis Hasheva in Lubavitch. What was Simchas Beis Hasheva in Lubavitch? A Fabrengen. You sat around, you spoke sichos, you said l'chaim. Okay, baby, you got a little shikir, so at the end of the night you danced a little. A man told me, a name of a yid, who I remember, who told me that when he was young and healthy, he would sit in the sukkah a whole night every night. And drink. And fabreng. But he didn't dance. He certainly didn't dance in the streets. And he certainly didn't dance in the streets with hundreds of people. That experience is incredibly unique. It's incredible. It's really special. It's very special.
Why did the Rebbe sit in the dark?
You have to talk loud so I can hear you.
Why did the Rebbe always sit in the dark?
Sit in Dorim? I'm supposed to tell you I don't know because that's the truth. But the Rebbe said once publicly, my Mokum Kavu is in Dorim. My fixed place is in the south. The reason the Rebbe said it was because in the shul upstairs, the Rebbe died Mincha Maida by the door, which is Safin. So somebody wrote a whole thing on the Rebbe's place is in Safin. The Rebbe said, my place is in Dorim. The only reason I daven in Safin is because I don't want to disturb the people. In the Gemara, the Shulchan was in Safin and the Meneda was in Dorim.
What?
In the Beis Hamikdash. I said the Gemara, in the Beis Hamikdash, the Shulchan was in the north and then Meneda was in the south. And the Gemara says, Hareitze laha'ashir yatzpin, Hareitze lehachkim yadrin, v'simnach shulchan b'tzafin and meneda b'darim. If you want to be rich, go to the north. If you want to be smart, go to the south. And the simon is because the shulchan was on the northern side and the meneda was on the southern side. I think that's the reason. The meneda is Torah. The Rabbeim sat in Dorim.
But the Rebbe, he sat in Durham.
Right.
But he faced Mizrach.
No, you face it up. No, I'm not talking about davening. I'm talking about
Oh.
Fabringen. Any other questions?
Where was the Rebbe?
Simcha Beis Sheva, he was in his room. And now, if the Rebbe had come to Simcha Beis Sheva, now this is going to be really blasphemy. He would have ruined it. Because we would have sat and looked at him. The Rebbe would have, I think, would have loved to join, and I'm sure he was there. But Simcha's Beis Sheva was, physically the Rebbe was in 770, and the stories how the Rebbe said, Mistama, he's by Simcha's Beis Sheva, and somebody was asleep. I should be careful because I'm not so religious about Simcha's Beis Sheva myself. There were Chassidim who stayed up every night, didn't go to sleep. Every night they danced all night. Real bittel the Chassidim, you know. Rabbi Marlow danced all night. Pinya Korfal of Hashem, they danced all night. Every night, they were just there. Simcha's Beis Sheva, very, very Erliche people who are really book people and more earnest people. The Simchas Beis Sheva was a Rav from the Rebbe, and they all participated till 6 in the morning every single night. Okay, can I move on? Does anybody else want to say anything? Now, the first night of Sukkot, the Rebbe had a minig that he would visit the different Sukkos. And the first Sukkah he would visit was the guests by 770. Guests came to the Rebbe always. When the guests first started coming, way back, these 50, 60 years ago, I'm going to say bad words now, okay, so be careful. Yeah. It was all Gesh. It was all Russians. So everybody knew someone. So you came to the Rebbe, you stayed in someone's house. But over time, the percentage of Shluch Chassidim who came with Gesh was less and less, and was more and more the Rebbe's own Chassidim, particularly the Baalei Tshuva. They didn't know anybody. And at some point, it was simply not realistic for people just to host them. And the Rebbe complained and complained and complained about Achei Temimim. The Rebbe took it personally. The Rebbe felt guests are coming to him. I need them. I need to provide them with accommodations. I need my Chassidim to help them. And they're not doing it. And the Rebbe complained. The end of the story was that an Israeli undertook to make a Achei Temimim. His name was Moshe Yaroslavsky, Olav Shalom. His son is the Rav of Nachas HaChabad. He would come here in the end of El and raise tens of thousands of dollars, including a very nice check, which he would get from the Rebbe personally, and he would provide accommodations, which meant beds, apartments. Boys and girls is one thing, but people came in families. And he provided whatever they needed, a place to sleep and food. And the food he provided in different venues where people would eat in large groups. The women ate above what's called the Farban, where the Koilel is now, on Kingston Avenue, above the library, and the men ate in the sukkah. So the Rebbe would come into the sukkah to greet the Orchim and say a little sikha the first night of Yom Tov, And the idea was that Rabbi Moshe Yaroslavsky, who was the Israeli host of the guests, would invite the Rebbe to come speak in the sukkah. And the Rebbe would say to him, you're the ma'areach, you're the host, you have to go first. So Rabbi Moshe Yaroslavsky would walk ahead of the Rebbe with his body contorted, he didn't want to turn his back to the Rebbe, invite the Rebbe into the sukkah, the Rebbe would come into the sukkah and he would speak. I have a neighbor whose shver was a good friend of Rabbi Moshe Yaroslavsky, who told me there's a couple of years Rabbi Yaroslavsky could not come himself. So he had to do it. And he told him the first night sukkah, you have to go over to the Rebbe and invite the Rebbe to come into the sukkah. Which was uncomfortable as it is. But then the idea that the Rebbe says to you, you're the host, you walk in front and I'll walk behind you, was very hard for him, but that's the way it was. And the Rebbe went into the sukkah, he spoke a sikha to the Orchim. And I think the Rebbe also went to some other sukkahs as well. But this was the first night sukkahs, the Rebbe went to the sukkah. I'm not sure about the other places. It was one of the regular features of Tishrei, and the Orchim were very important. The guests were very important to the Rebbe. And I'm just going to tell you one detail. There's a lot to say about that. That's a whole other parsha, yeah? But this is going to blow your mind. Any guest who came to the Rebbe at any time in the year from France, the Rebbe paid 50% of the traveling expenses. Any guest who came to the Rebbe from France any time of the year, if a trip costed $500, the Rebbe gave you a check for $250. Every guest. Now, why France? It's the same reason the Rebbe sat in Durham. The correct answer is I don't know. The Rebbe lived in France. The Rebbe had a very deep connection to France. The Rebbe liked to speak in French. And it's the story that the Rebbe hated France, and now the Rebbe made the Sikha Vayeshev Nun Beis. The Rebbe made France into a beater. But this is, you want to know there were so many Frenchies? Because they got tickets half off. The Rebbe paid every single boy and girl, man and woman, France, 50% of the cost. Now the Anash, I'm going to say now a bad word again, the Gezhe Chevre, there's a rule when the Rebbe gives you money, you take it. So the Rebbe gave them a check, they took it. But they didn't want to use the Rebbe's money. Bachrim used to save pennies a whole year just to have enough money to come to the Rebbe for Yom Tiv. And then they would give back the money the Rebbe gave them. They took it. And they cashed it. They deposited it. And then they would give the money back to the Rebbe as Maimid. But people who couldn't afford, and there's B'chlal, Yidden who came to the Rebbe from other places in the world, if the Rebbe found out that it was very hard, when they were going to Yechidus, the Rebbe would say, go into the Maskiris, and he would give generous contributions, like a quarter, even not friends. The Rebbe helped people come to the Rebbe. The guests were really important to the Rebbe. They were really, we Crown Heightzers, I hate to say it, we hated them. But the Rebbe, and the truth is, you think about it now, if not for the guests, you know what Tishrei Crown Heights would look like? The feeling of the Rebbe's presence today, after Gimel Tammuz, is all the Orchim. And if you're a Crown Heights and don't like it, I promise you don't want to sit comfortably in your seat in a quiet shul where the most exciting thing is, can you pass me the tissues? The feeling of the Rebbe's presence, 770, has everything to do with the guests. And the hosting of the guests was a big deal to them. Go ahead.
So when did Crown Heights have Moses Arfin kick off? When did the Ashel start?
It's all after Gimel Tammuz. All after Gimel Tammuz. It's all of, you know this, and you can make an argument that there's more guests coming now that came then. Lubavitch is so much bigger as a family, as a community.
Right.
You can argue there's more guests here this year than there were in Mem Aleph.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually. It was Hakel, Mem Aleph was Hakel.
There's much more people.
It's Lubavitch is bigger. And I hate to say it, Mekum to cook enough abenkel. The Mesiras Nefesh to come is unbelievable. It's mamish unbelievable. Not to look at a chair.
Right.
But technically, that's what the Rebbe's expression was. Kuchen of Abenkel. Now, the next thing on the agenda is lulav. Yeah. In Lubavitch, everything does in pairs. You know, when we keep the pieces, we have an official fight. You're on this side of the street, I'm on that side of the street, and everybody's happy. I feel like when communities are very small, they get along. Then they get a little big, they start to fight. Then they become so big, they stop fighting. They just become two communities and everyone's happy. And we're getting there slowly. Crown Heights is getting, we're fighting less because we're so big. There's enough room for me to hate you on one side of the street. And we're all good. You got mine, I got yours. There's only one 770. But okay, they're working that out also. There's upstairs and downstairs. Okay, I don't want to get myself into any more trouble. The next thing was lulav. The next thing is lulav. The Rebbe, before he was Rebbe yet, had a minig. If you come to Zodal Minim, people came to the Rebbe and asked the Rebbe to make a bracha on his lulav, on the Rebbe's lulav, before he was Rebbe, in the Fidik Rebbe's lifetime. Why did they ask him to make a bracha on the Rebbe's lulav? I don't think it was so much because the Rebbe was a holy man, as much as the Rebbe had Basher a better lulav. And he probably had a Yanav Esrig. So people used to ask the Rebbe to make a bracha on the Rebbe's lulav before the Rebbe was Rebbe. By the way, I forgot to mention, the Rabbeim, it says in the Rebbe's Nishimis, that the Rabbeim always used a Yanav Esrig, a Esrig from Italy, from Calabria, from Genoa, from Yanav. And one year the Rebbe Rashab did not have a Yanav Esrig. He made a bracha on a Tzoldik Esrig and he cried. It's a tradition goes back to the Alter Rebbe. And the Baal Shem Tov said, the Alter Rebbe said that when Moshe Rabbeinu was told by the Eibishter, Moshe Rabbeinu sent 3 shluchim on a cloud, and they went to Italy, and they brought back Esregim. Savar Tazeh from Alter Rebbe. The Rabbeim used Yanav Esregim from Italy, not from Israel. But quietly and secretly, the Rabbeim had a second Esreg from Yisrael, and in their room, after davening, the Rabbeim would shake the lulav with the Esreg of Yisrael as well. So people used to come to 7-7, they shake the Rebbe's lulav. So when the Rebbe became Rebbe, it sort of continued. I think Reb Zalman Duchman was the one who asked first. But it became sort of a natural thing that the Rebbe, you come to 7-7, you make a bracha on the Rebbe's lulav. By the way, our minig is, let me tell you the whole story, okay? The Rebbe gave people his lulav to make a bracha, and he went upstairs, and he went to the apartment of the Frierdiker Rebbe, and he brought down a platter of cake for people to make a bracha. Now we're not, we shake the lulav before davening, not like the rest of the Jewish world, in the middle of davening, right? Al pi halacha before davening you're not allowed to eat. So in Lubavitch it's a mitzvah to eat. So someone told the Rebbe that this is, the idea that the Rebbe is serving people cake before davening in public could be a chilul Hashem, it's heipech halacha l'teichlu al adam. And the Rebbe responded, it's a minig chassidim, it's a custom of chassidim, when a minig chassidim dafen dich nechemen, you're not supposed to be ashamed of minig of chassidim. The story behind this is important. I'm telling this to you for a reason. To make a leishe basukah, you don't have to eat. You have to sit in the sukkah in a relaxed way. When you go into the sukkah and eat cake or drink wine, you make a leishe basukah. If you go in for a fruit, you don't make a leishe basukah. What happens if you go into the sukkah for a good shmooze? You can sit 2-3 hours, you're not going to eat anything. Al pi halacha, there's a line that you cross which is called mitayel ba, to stroll around in the sukkah. And if you're in that category, you have to make a bracha leishe basukah. What about when you go into the sukkah for 1 minute to make havdalah? What about when you sit for 1 minute to shake a lulav? Do you make a leishe basukah? You probably should. You're doing a mitzvah. A mitzvah is a kviyas, right? Havdalah is a mitzvah. Lulav is a mitzvah. So the solution is that you eat cake. So the Rebbe used to bring cake, so that people, along with shaking the lulav in the sukkah, would make a leishe basukah. The Rebbe brought the cake not so much for the cake. They brought the Rebbe for the cake for the leishe basukah for shaking the lulav. So for you girls, when you're going to go into your sukkah, in Mitzvah on Yom Tiv, or wherever you're going to be, and you're going to shake the lulav, I know you don't want to eat cake because you're worried about all kinds of wonderful, important things, but there's a reason to eat a shtick of the cake in the sukkah, because you want to make a leishe basukah. Leishe basukah goes on the lulav also, because there's a shaila that for the lulav alone you can make a leishe basukah because you're doing a mitzvah. Anyway, so the Rebbe used to give people his lulav. The Rebbe became a Rebbe, the custom continued. How did the custom continue? The Rebbe came to 770 pretty early. I mean, in my years, it came around 7:15 in the morning. He went into his room, he took his lulav, went out into the sukkah. He did the dalad min, if they had a cup of tea, and then the Rebbe opened the door. And you would walk in. My father remembers this. And the Rebbe was standing in the corner with a seif from the Rebbe Marash. I presume, my father always tells me that the reason was the Rebbe Marash, is the Rebbe Marash Chassidus is written in short, so the Rebbe was able to concentrate. I don't buy that. I believe the Rebbe Marash, because in the Rebbe Marash you have the Hemshech V'Kocha, which is all about Yom Tiv. All the Yom Tevim, the Rebbe Marash goes through Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Seres Mitzvah, Yom Kippur, Dalad, Yom Sukkot, and Sukkot. All the mitzvahs, the whole Tishrei is described in a series of the Rebbe Marash in a very orderly way. And he would look at every person who walked there would look at you. He'd listen to you make the brachas and answer Amen. So every Lubavitcher got to walk into the sukkah, take the Rebbe's lulav, make 2 brachas on the first day, 1 bracha each other day, and the Rebbe would say Baruch Hashem Amen. And then when it finished, the Rebbe went to daven. What happened eventually was people came late. So the Rebbe, all the old people who didn't sleep, were there on time, and then the younger people started rolling in, and at one point the Rebbe said, I don't have to wait people to finish their extra sleep. So around 1962, Chav Beis or Chav Gimel, the Rebbe gave the sukkah, the lulav, to Rabbi Meir Harlik, Zogazun Zayin, Shlita. The Rebbe made the bracha himself, and then he gave it to him. And every time he gave him the lulav, even after the first day, the Rebbe would say, Matana manas lahachzer. It's a gift to get back, so it'll be good for the noisen and the lekech, like it says in the Hayem Yem. So the Rebbe stopped doing it personally. So the first 2 days Yom Tov, the Rebbe came very early, around 7:15, which for the Rebbe was very early. And by 7:40, the lulav was already waiting, and we would line up. Chalamoyed, the Rebbe came around 9. So by 9:15, the Elim was lining up. So what happened was, you could wait 4 or 5 hours for the lulav. So they made a system where you came at 6 in the morning, and they gave you a ticket. And they said, come back 7 o'clock, come back 8 o'clock. They would estimate. So you literally didn't have, if you got a ticket, you didn't have to wait in line. You came 9 o'clock, this is your number. And it made it much better. This is in the later years, much better and easier for everybody. And hundreds of people made a bracha on the Rebbe's Dal Minim every day. As a rule, and I've heard exceptions to this rule. I'm sorry?
Didn't people that help with something specific?
I can't hear you.
Didn't people that help with something that don't even know about it, like the first tickets,
I don't know, and it's really not that important. As a rule, the Rebbe did not give his Dal Minim to women. And I don't know halachically why. The first day I understand. But after the first day, there's no lachem b'chlal. The Rebbe gave the women the Dal Minim on Shana Rabbah. There was a tzadikis in Lubavitch named Mariasha Gerelik. I don't know if she got it from the Rebbe's own hand, or she got it from the secretary, but she would stand on the deck. I remember seeing that the women would line up, and the women got an opportunity to make a bracha on the Rebbe's Dal Minim, on Shana Rabbah. But every day of Sukkot, as a bacharim, you would, I told you, a whole night we danced. You went to the mikveh, you sat in the sukkah, you fell asleep. The lulav rolled in, you were right there, you were the first ones in line, you made a bracha, and you went to daven.
There was no dropping off together.
Now, the Rebbe came in 10 o'clock to daven. When the Rebbe came in to daven, he didn't have his lulav with him. He came in with a siddur. So the Rebbe's lulav stayed outside till probably 11:15, which is at least 2 hours, sometimes 3 or more. They would come to Rabbi Harlig and they would tell him they just did Kedusha, or whatever, the middle of Hallel. And then he would take the lulav downstairs. He would walk to the front of the shul and he would put down the lulav on the Rebbe's stender. He put it down by the Rebbe. And the Rebbe kept it for Hallel. Before, in Chazar Tashatz. They would tell him that was something after Kedusha. He would go downstairs and the Rebbe said Hallel with the lulav. And then the Rebbe kept it till after davening. And we kept it till after davening, and then would walk out. There's the beautiful picture of the lulav was always on the way out, never on the way in. Now I have to tell you one story, and I know that there's very little time, and I really need a little more than a little time, but this is a story. In Tafshin Nun Beis, the year of the stroke, Rabbi Harlig came to 770 at 7:30 in the morning. What time it was? The Rebbe went into the sukkah. He shook the Daled Minim. Rabbi Harlig went in. He gave the Rebbe a glass of tea. This was all the regular tradition. And then a few minutes later, he knocked on the door to take the Daled Minim from the Rebbe, as he always did. And the Rebbe is holding the Daled Minim. He's not giving it to him. So Meir Harlig doesn't know what to do. You don't argue with the Rebbe. And he reaches out to take it, and the Rebbe is not giving it to him. So finally, the Rebbe says, "The Mershten Tag. The Ershten Tag darf mishtein allein. It's the first day. The first time I do it myself." And after stopping for almost 30 years, the Rebbe went in that little room. They built a little room with 2 doors. He went in one door and you shook the Rebbe's lulav. And he stood 7:45 in the morning till 2:30 in the afternoon. How many hours is that? It's 4, 5, 6.5 hours. From 7:45, he was 89 and a half years old, watching every Lubavitcher walk by the Rebbe and make 2 brachas and say, every bracha. The Rebbe wouldn't sit. They offered the Rebbe his stender, the Rebbe wouldn't lean. I walked into the sukkah at 1:15, 1:30. His back was concave. You know what that means? He was in so much physical pain. Like this. But the Rebbe was so stubborn. He stood for over 6 hours and watched every Lubavitcher bracha on his Daled Minim. And those people who didn't know that the Rebbe was doing this, who already made a bracha on their own lulav, came to 7:7 and just gave a shake. And the Rebbe looked at each one. B'klal Nun Beis Tishrei, there was one event where the Rebbe saw all the men, there was another event where the Rebbe saw all the women, and there was another event where the Rebbe saw all the children. That day, Shachris started 3 o'clock. Now 4 o'clock in the United Nations, there was a vote about Israel. They got to Hallel, this is 30 more seconds, they got to Hallel about 7 minutes to 4, and the Rebbe played with his lulav. for 7 minutes. He was tying his lulav. We should start the bracha of Hallel exactly at 4 o'clock. The Rebbe was acutely aware, and I remember that. Mamish, 7 minutes. B'chlal, every day the Rebbe used to tighten his lulav. That year the Rebbe went Mamish the Malshemske Maise. We davened Shachas till 5:30. We davened Mincha with the Rebbe, davened Mincha with his talis. And then we ran home to each of the Shabbos, ran back from Maida. It was one of those marathon days. I wish I had more time to describe it, but this is what we had. The first day Sukkot. I don't know.